Hi. Yeah, I'm wearing my beanie today. A little tuft of hair coming out. I look like a cancer patient, but that's okay. No disrespect. I wanted to discuss something, and I don't even care if this gets 0 views. I don't really care. Like, that's not really why what I'm doing this for. And I have another hot flush going on. I swear to God, I'm in premenopausal, whatever you want to call it, I guess. I don't know why my cheeks are red right now. And it's this, okay, no, here we go. Okay, so this is actually a very important topic. It's the topic of disconnection. Okay, ready? Here we go. Whoa, this is like sort of a heated topic, but churches will excommunicate somebody if they are going against the church rules, or if they are, doing extreme, usually like antisocial, whatever, like things. They've committed a bunch of crimes or whatever it is, or they've just really there's a number of things. They've just oh God, I can't see my face. Anyway, or they've just really violated church, moral codes or whatever it is, right? Or they've basically, created a bunch of corruption within the church. Like the Catholic Church does that. They excommunicate people. There's other churches. I'm not going to go through a list of them, but they, basically excommunicate or cast a person out, say, this person is no longer a part of our group because they are, they're not in alignment with our values and our things, or in most cases it's like they've committed some kind of crime or been abusive or something like that, right? So that's kind of where that goes, but obviously you have this moral code of okay, somebody has the right to communicate, whether they to communicate or not communicate, right? Well, if someone has a value which states that, I think it's important to resolve conflict and actually stick with it until it gets resolved, or, we agree to disagree or whatever, but we maintain peace or something, we get to a point where we understand each other and we can communicate civilly and peacefully with respect, giving each other, at least the benefit of the doubt, or coming into the conversation with, I'm not going to rip you apart. I'm going to hold space for us being able to have an even exchange of communication. That is a healthy mindset. And what kids and people these days are being taught, or this idea is being spread around, that, in a way, it sort of gives them, a power trip, oh, I'll just cut them out of my life. I don't have to deal with that conversation, so I'll just cut them off. I'll just cut them out of my life. They're a toxic person because they won't listen. They won't agree with me. They won't listen to me. And when maybe it's actually just that they're communicating in a very disrespectful tone with the other person, so the other person doesn't actually want to receive that kind of a tone from them. It's disrespectful. It's unfriendly and hostile. So it comes across, disrespectfully. So of course they're going to be I'm sorry, but I don't want to talk like that. So, because they won't bend towards, the other person's wishes, they're I'll just cut the person out of my life. Wow. And, I see this so much with, nowadays, even with family members, with, relationships, with, even if the relationship doesn't end up continuing, whether it's after 1 date or 3 dates or years, or whatever it is, one person just decides, I'm just going to cut them off. I'm just going to cut them out of my life so I can protect my peace. When really they're just avoiding accountability. And, in the case of families, it's usually, some kid is I'm just going to cut my parent out of my life because they're just toxic, when maybe they were actually trying to have a decent conversation with them and actually, help them learn some values of how to actually communicate through a conflict or a disagreement with respect and with empathy and with all those kinds of things, and maybe You know, the child just grew up thinking, well, everything revolves around me, and, you know, if you're going to try and make me, you know, guilty of my behavior from the past or whatever, I'm just going to cut you off from my life. When maybe they're not trying, the parent's not trying to make you guilty of it. They're just trying to actually get you to accept your responsibility for the effects that you have caused by your own participation in the events of your life, and thereby learn and grow from those situations rather than, sorry, I have horrible eye contact in my videos. I should just like look right there. Rather than, you know, think that all you have to do is just cut this toxic person or toxic family member out of your life and everything is just going to be great, you know, and like suddenly your problems will just disappear. Well, it doesn't actually work like that, because you haven't taken responsibility for that behavior or that pattern of behavior. So you're going to, you know, no matter how many times you cut a toxic person out of your life, if that person is simply trying to have a decent conversation with you and have mutual respect and mutual understanding, running from that with every situation that you meet where it becomes difficult for you to actually accept any responsibility for your own actions or accept any responsibility that for the fact that you may have hurt that person, it's just going to keep happening, and it's not the original person's fault. And I think that people who continuously just cut people out of their lives because they don't want to take any responsibility for their actions of hurting that person, you know, they're just going to keep running into the same situation with other people, pretty much. And, you know, there's a saying which is like, the grass is greener where you water it. It's not always like the grass is greener on the other side. But the grass is greener where you take responsibility for your own actions, and you, no matter how heated you feel inside you because you're like, oh, but this person really pissed me off. Well, no matter that, you still have to use basic rules of kindness and courtesy with that other person. And, you know, the best and most ideal situation is that you both come to an understanding with each other. Obviously, yeah, of course, if the person, through their own actions and communication, you can observe that they don't actually have the goal in mind to have a decent two-way communication cycle and have that decent, respectful conversation. Sure, it may be hard for them too, and maybe, you know, nobody's perfect, people slip up sometimes, but if they basically have the underlying goal of having that decent, respectful conversation, then, you know, the ideal decent thing to do is to meet them halfway. And whether or not that the result of that conversation brings you closer together or not, or heals some things, or, you know, resolves some misunderstandings or whatever it is. God, I can feel my cheeks. I need some ice. Oh God. Anyway, whatever it is, you know, that's better than creating further hurt and further misunderstanding and further assumption, and just generally further making the situation worse by just ghosting, cutting people off, slamming the door in their face and walking away and never talking to them again. You know, like that's not healthy, you know, like that's not good. Using good communication skills, emotional intelligence, empathy, that's harmful, and it hurts people a lot. And it puts the other person in a position where, like, you know, they can't do anything about it. And if they do try to do something about it, they look crazy. You know, oh, look how crazy this person is. They're trying desperately to get in touch with me and resolve this disagreement or whatever it is. Oh, look at how crazy they are, you know, which, you know, says a lot about the person who just walked away and slammed the door in their face. But regardless, it makes me really sad to know that people just can be that dismissive. And but that idea is going around in society these days with, you know, like a whole spectrum of age groups, and it's being taught as like that's the thing to do. Like, just cut these people out of your life. They're just negative people to just cut out of your life, and everything will be better, and your life will just suddenly be cool and calm. You can just move on with your life, and it doesn't matter. But they're leaving a string of people behind them that are hurting and broken in their wake, and now they're cut loose of any responsibility of having to do with any of that. And I just think that's really, I'm going to play a video that I actually uploaded to my own YouTube channel. Oh my God, I have a fan going on in here even. It's just, I don't know if it's the heat or what, but anyways, and I'm going to play this video, and from a therapist who shares my sentiments on this whole subject. And I really think it's, you know, one more thing before I play this. When I was a kid, it was like, I guess I was taught from my dad, our values were like, you know, things don't just like magically get better by time passing. Like if we had a disagreement, or if there was something going on that wasn't being talked about or something like that, we got to address this, you know, like this needs to be addressed. And we don't move forward until, like, if I wanted things like, oh dad, I want money for what about this, your grades, you know, like, oh dad, I want to go do this. Remember this conversation we tried to have? Like we got to finish that, you know, like you finish it and you resolve it. And then, like, I eventually have to be like, okay, you're right, I haven't been doing my homework when I said I had, and you're right, I need to fix that. So usually there's something one or both people need to do to kind of fix something, or at least understand what's going on, you know. But we didn't, like, you know, we didn't move forward. Like I couldn't get what I wanted until this other thing that was brought up before was actually resolved, discussed, communicated about in a healthy, respectful way. And yeah, I was not always perfect. I'm not always perfect at all, but I was taught that you don't just sort of brush something under the rug and call it handled. You know, like it's, if there's something that needs to be discussed, you talk about it. And you know, if something happens that like is like upsetting or whatever, like you say so. Like you say, that really upset me, or I really don't like that, or whatever. And it can be talked about, you know. I don't know, even with my friends when I was younger, it was like, I mean, I didn't have many upsets with my friends, actually, when I was younger. The only thing that upset my friends was, like, because I moved so often, and they would get sad when I would leave. But yeah, there was never, like, you know, serious conversations with my friends when I was younger. But as I did get older, it was like, if I had a misunderstanding with a friend or something like that, I would talk with them about it and just say, like, what did you mean by that, or like what, or whatever it is, you know. There was never any back off about it. Like there was never any like weird, like, oh, you're talking too much to me, like, oh, I'm just gonna ignore you because you're trying to resolve, like, you know, have a conversation with me about something. Like there was never this weird, it's weird to me like that, like if there's something, I don't know, it's just, it's weird that people do that nowadays, where they just cut people off and they just think nothing of it and don't care, and, well, I have to protect my peace of mind, but they don't actually think about the other person as well. Like I'm just like, what? They don't actually think that their actions have anything to do with the other person's state of mind too. Or think that they have any obligation to just, like, you know, even if you say, okay, cool, yeah, let's meet up in a few days and we can chat about it, or like, you know, be clear and give a time. Like, I'll talk to you in a couple days. I'll give you a call on Saturday, and then we can hash it out. And then both agree that if either one of you starts to get a little, you know, like speaking angrily, like you tone it down and you take a breath and you take a step back and slow it down. Like oftentimes when you just slow things down, it reduces the, like, you know, that kind of a thing, which is never a healthy way to talk. Okay, so it's this guy, right?
Yeah. Feeling really sad right now after making this last video because of how strong a response has been to it, agreeing with it. I was talking about this cutoff culture and the problem of it, and some people commented this same theme over and over on that video, that it seems like our culture and the dating culture is having a competition for who can care less about the relationship. And I mean this sincerely, like, it makes me really sad.
I just don't care. Yeah, whatever, you know?
To know that so many people here are just hurting so much, and that the fear of rejection is so strong. The fear of rejection is so strong that we're willing to try, but not too much. But we're willing to see if it goes, but not if it's too difficult.
Not if it's too difficult or inconvenient.
This isn't living. It's playing a video game. And I just want really genuinely.
I just want to say it's almost like that mechanism of resisting or fearing too much. Like, you know, if I go in further, I'm just going to get rejected, and I'm going to get you know, dismissed, whatever. So I'm going to do the dismissing and rejection first, you know, like, and it's like that, yeah, it's like a fear of like, oh, I don't want to get hurt, so I'm going to do the hurting. Like, why not just dive in and say, you know what, I'm going to take accountability for myself and my own actions. I take responsibility for hurting your feelings and hurting you. And these things that I've done to hurt you, I understand that, how that made you feel that way. And I can see how by my actions, you now don't trust me and reacted the way that you did. I don't agree with your reaction, but I can see how it could have made you react that way. And I'm sorry that I did that. And I'm endeavoring to change my behavior and change my habits and patterns of how I do those things. It obviously isn't a promise that there's going to be change, but it's at least taking responsibility for those patterns of behavior and not just shunning them and saying, like, you know, to the other person, well, it's your fault you got upset. You're the one who, well, I'm not responsible for your upsets. Well, my dear, if you had a bunch of involvement with that person, you darn well had something to do with it.
It feels so sad because it's in commitment that we can find freedom. And
hello.
I feel really sad. And so if you've been ghosted, if you've been cut off, if your partner's disappeared, whether it's after one date, whether it's
or family member, whatever.
I mean this from deep in my heart. I'm sorry. That's wrong.
Yeah, it is. It's wrong.
The norm of our culture is wrong here. The norm that in dating the rule of thumb is to not care too much, that's wrong. And what it's all rooted in, guys, what this is all rooted in.
Or pretend that you're caring when you're not. And teasing.
Fear of disconnection. But we are disconnecting ourselves for fear of feeling disconnection. And it's tearing us apart. Because it's not just about dating. It's about marriage. It's about committed relationships. It's about showing up for your kids. It's about showing up for your parents on their deathbed. It's about committing to things that are valuable in life, even when they're really fucking hard.
Even when it's difficult. You stay. You fix it.
I'm really sad about it all.
So glad he understands.
Feeling really sad right now.
I wish more people would. That is all for now.